Guest has seen more of America than most folks and has spent the past 15 years telling us about it. As a correspondent for NBC News and The Today Show, he has compiled hundreds of stories about the little people in the country. He's compiled some of these stories in a book called In Pursuit of the American Dream, and he's with us this afternoon. Would you please welcome Bob Dotson.
Nice to have you with us this afternoon.
Oh, it's nice to be here.
What a great job. You just get to travel all over the country and find the good people, the people that make this country work. Huh?
You bet. You know, most reporters, they ride down the road in a car. If the right front tire goes flat, we all jump out, look at the flat tire, race to the phone, tell the world that the tire has gone flat. You see? Maybe 6 months later we come back and we say the tire is still flat. But I get to hang around 3 or 4 days wherever I am, look at the 3 tires that are still rolling and kind of speculate why. Now that's fun. That's fun.
You brought us some wonderful stories this afternoon. One of them is about the Iron Man.
That's right. George Contos, 90 years old, decided that good health was not anything that he much cared about, except what he wanted to do was be able to drink Boilermakers, Duke beer, and Canadian Club. So he set about at the YMCA doing 1,000 sit-ups every day.
1,000 sit-ups
1,000 sit-ups. He would do that in the morning and then, of course, drink his Boilermakers in the afternoon. But you see, he had been a bartender for years and years and years, and he figured if these guys were having a lot of fun on the other side of the bar, he wanted to live at least another 50 years so he could do it. George Contos, an ordinary guy with an extraordinary pursuit.
Yeah. And he's 90 years old.
90 years old.
He doesn't look 90, does
Every
he?
year he has a bet with the county coroner. Guess who wins, folks?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how do you find a story like that?
Well, you see, I have the luxury of being able to sit and listen, kind of like what you folks do every day. But you know yourself, if you're on a bus or an airplane, you're going to tell more to the stranger sitting next to you just because he's listening than you ever would to your mother or your father or your wife or whatever. So that's what I do. But every once in a while, I have a dream of my own. And you know, Bryant Gumbel used to be a sportscaster, right?
Right.
And now he's a preeminent newsman. So one day I made a bet with him. I said, you know what I want to do? I want to be a sportscaster, and I got just the game. And I think we have a clip of it here. It starts with me introducing it.
This is a very unusual.
Beautiful day for football and a classic gridiron confrontation. The cops from the Tulsa Police Department against the inmates of the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Let's go over some of the rules in this unique game. No police dogs in the defensive secondary, no knives on the pass rush, and no end runs outside the stadium. Some classic grudge matches this afternoon. Let's go to the field.
Richard Parker, assault on a police officer. Ernest Booth, robbery. Raymond Reese, forgery. Marcus Goodlow, arson.
Low Spring, fugitive warrants.
John Wagner, motorcycle squad.
Don McIntosh, patrol.
Joe Roberts, possession of narcotics.
Michael Todd, taking things that don't belong to me.
I wanted to do every cliche that was on Monday Night Football. And it turned out the game was actually pretty good. It came down to the last 30 seconds. And guess what? The good guys won 21-20.
As it should be.
But all the Outlaws said they'd be back next year because they'd have plenty of time to practice and they were going to win.
Now, is this something that they do all the time?
Well, they did it about 4 or 5 years running, and then the police thought, well, we may not be able to win next year, so they called it off. It was a great while it lasted.
Who was in the stands? Families of the police officers?
Yeah,
and
oh yeah.
inmates and all
Yeah, the
that?
halfway house was full.
Now, you also found a junk food critic.
Yeah, you know, there's a fellow by the name of Buffalo George Toomer in Dallas, and he has a great idea. He says, why don't I review the food that people actually eat? You see, Mary looks kind of like a miniature Orson Welles. God rest him. George's idea and his motto in life is that you should eat no Twinkie before it's time.
Aha.
You see?
Only junk food
Yeah,
will
only
pass
junk
these
food.
lips.
He talks about things like pizza that looks like a giant soda cracker with a big red stain, you know, and little Michelin tire treads on it. Don't buy it. The way I met George was that he is in Dallas, of course, and he got tired of all the stories about the Kennedy assassination theories. So one day, he wandered out onto that famous grassy knoll where the second gunman was supposed to be, and he ended up dropping 15 spent rifle shells on the grassy knoll so that he could tell all the tourists that it was actually a 15-gun theory.
Good
That's
heavens.
George.
But you know, I noticed in that picture there was a large-size version of Howdy Doody in that picture. Now, is this the same man that I'm sitting next to who at one point won a Howdy Doody look-alike contest?
I'm sorry, but that's true.
It did as a kid?
Yes, I was on the Texas Bruce Wranglers Cartoon Club, St. Louis, Missouri.
I didn't realize what talent we were going to
Yes.
have on the
You know,
set.
you never know.
And all these... Ted Koppel and I are always in a real tie-off on that.
When this country pulled out of the Olympics, when they were going to be held in Moscow, some folks in Kansas thought they should be held there.
Well, there is a Moscow, Kansas, and they invited me to come out there, and they said, if we can't go to Russia, why come here? And what they were doing is a farm community. They were trying to clean it up. They said, we're going to have some changing rooms for people, and they took me out into the cornfield, and of course the corn at that time in the spring was only about 3 inches tall, but he said, you know, by game time there'll be enough room where you'll have some place to hide. And they said people can swim across the local sewer, and anybody who makes it across will get a medal. But the real key was a fellow named Sparky, who was the county fire marshal, and he came around running with a Zippo lighter, and they ended up swiping the mayor's bird bath and put gasoline in it and lit it in front of the water tower. Yeah, the whole bit. Moscow, Kansas, wonderful place. Yeah.
You know, one of the stories that you don't have with us today that I just would love to talk about because it touched me when I read it was a chapter called A Special Friendship Story.
Yes. 2 people in Florida, their families together, had spent a lifetime learning about each other. One family was black, one family was white. Ethan Allen and Willie Mae Sapp. These 2 folks, one family started out as the slaves of the other, but through the years they had taken care of each other, they'd raised each other, they'd birthed the babies and what have you. Now they were about 300 miles apart, but every time they could, they would get back together. And against the current of the time, they built a friendship that lasted forever. These are the kinds of folks that are in that story, as well as the eccentrics, in the book itself, because so many times people come to me and they say, Bob, we don't see ourselves on TV. You know, what we do doesn't really matter. When people go out to do feature stories, the reporter rides the elephant. How about just showing us us? And so I've been doing that now for the last 15 years.
We're going to go away, and all of us are going to be back right after this.
If you'd like to be part of the afternoon show studio audience, the tickets are free. The number to call is 478-3100.